Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things, and welcome to the 5th day of 2 weeks of Elizabeth Gaskell. Today it is the 29th of September, which means it is Elizabeth Gaskell's birthday. So, happy birthday to Elizabeth Gaskell. Today I'm going to be talking about my 10th favourite Elizabeth Gaskell novel/novella, and that is Cousin Phillis. Part 1. It is a great thing for a lad when he is first turned into the independence of lodgings. I do not think I was ever so satisfied and proud in my life as when, at 17, I sat down in a little three-cornered room above a pastry cook's shop in the country town of Eltham. Cousin Phillis is a novella by Elizabeth Gaskell that was first published in 1861, and it's about 20,000 words. It's quite short. Cousin Phillis is a really enjoyable Elizabeth Gaskell novella, and I would recommend it as a fairly decent place to start with Elizabeth Gaskell, as it's fairly short, but I think really, really good, and introduces you to quite a lot of topics that are relevant throughout her work. We follow a very young man called Paul Manning. He is just 17 years old, and he has just begun on his own path in life as an engineer working in the railway department. The book examines Paul's life and is in a way a coming-of-age story, but like many other clever Gaskell works, such as Cranford and My Lady Ludlow, it is not actually very much about the narrator, and it is more about his cousin Phillis. Soon after arriving in the town of Eltham when he is working, Paul discovers that he has some distant relations who live fairly nearby that he's never met. A distant cousin of her mother's, her husband, and their daughter Phillis. He goes over to their town in order to meet them and make their acquaintance because he doesn't know many people in the neighbourhood. The book follows his relationships with this family and what happens when his best friend, who he works with in the railways, comes to play a role in that family's life and relationships and interactions as well. There are a lot of things that I love about my cousin Phillis. I think the way in which Gaskell slightly shifts the focus away from the narrator in this story is brilliant, because it is in many ways a coming-of-age story for Paul, but in many ways the way in which he comes of age is not by his own experience and what he does himself so much as his observations and his experiences through watching and learning from his cousin Phillis and also from his friend Holsworth. And although Paul does have a vital role to play in the story of this novella, it is a lot of the time as an observer, and when he does act, it's almost as a side character. The story he is telling is not quite his own, although it is a story that shapes him deeply. Another thing I love about this novella is the relationship between Paul and Phillis. Paul and Phillis have a really lovely platonic friendship. They care for each other very, very deeply, and although they meet each other quite late on in life, they kind of take on sibling roles towards each other in a way that I really, really enjoy, and I really love their friendship very, very much. I also really enjoy the characters of Phillis's parents, especially her father, who is a nonconformist minister. Paul has in his head a very clear idea of what he thinks a nonconformist minister may be, and when he finds a very physically strong, powerful farmer who is also a nonconformist minister, he finds himself a bit confused and a bit surprised. And Phillis's father is a wonderful character and really, really interesting. One of the things I do like about Elizabeth Gaskell's work and the way she explores themes of religion and of nonconformist and dissenter groups in Victorian society is the way that she attempts to rebuff the stereotypes of the day, and also to explore the different ways in which different branches and systems of religion can operate. My Cousin Phillis is in some way a love story, but it's also a story of growing up and realising the effect your actions can have on other people, and also realising that the way you see the world and the way that other people see the world isn't necessarily the same. It's a really enjoyable read and one that I would highly recommend. I think this probably is one of the novellas that is lower down this list simply because it's quite short and there isn't as much to it as there is to a lot of other Elizabeth Gaskell works, but I would highly recommend it. I'm very fond of it, and it might be a nice place to start with Elizabeth Gaskell, as it's a bit shorter but a nice introduction to some of her themes and a really enjoyable book. Do let me know down in the comments if you have read Cousin Phillis. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow to talk about another Elizabeth Gaskell book.